Welcome to today's episode on the Penthouse from Good Tenants. Now, if you have been following our conversations, you know that we discuss everything that has to do with property management or facility management. Today, we would focus on mistakes that property managers and facility managers make generally. I do not think that this episode will capture all the mistakes, but if you have some that you would like to add, you can just drop it in the comments. Let us know if there are mistakes that you've been dealing with and you love to solve them. The whole idea is to bring solutions at the end of the day. If there are mistakes that you see your colleagues make, or even your leaders, just don't tag anyone, don't mention their name, just drop them in the comments or send an email to us or find a way to, let us know these mistakes wherever you're watching this particular episode. This is not going to be the only episode to capture all the mistakes and solutions, but at the end of the day, we hope to bring solutions. We hope to help the system grow as we achieve it together. When I come back, KJ will be here with me. That's Kunle Jinodu, and we will get into the conversation for today. Hi, KJ. So there are some mistakes that facility management leaders know about, some that property managers repeat all the time. We want to look at those mistakes and prefer some of their solutions. We know that this episode can't capture all, but as much as we can take today, let's look at some of those mistakes and some solutions as well.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. I'm waiting for you.
Interesting. Welcome to another episode, right?
I will do that.
I'm just saying that to welcome all the guests. It's interesting because I don't think that there are things that property managers don't know.
Okay.
I actually personally think that there are not tools to remind them about these things. But I'll go through a couple.
Okay.
Maybe talk about how they can ensure that they remember to do it.
Okay.
The first one that I hear a lot when I speak to CEOs is not sending the right reminders or documents to the tenants at the right time. So I'll give two examples. By law, when you have an annual rent agreement with the tenant, you're supposed to send a reminder 6 months to expiry, another one 3 months to expiry to confirm if they're going to rent, 1 month. There's a series of emails to send, or actually letters. Because we are human, and as a property manager, you're probably managing hundreds of apartments.
Yeah. It's
very easy. It's natural that out of those 100, you forget to do the right things for 10 of them. It's just natural. Right? What happens though is two things. Number one, because you don't send that notice, a tenant can potentially, I'm sure you're a property manager, you understand this, a tenant can potentially stay beyond their rent tenure because that letter didn't come in on time without paying. Right? That's number one. Number two is because you'd probably review your rent every 2-3 years, depending on the company policy.
Okay.
Or if there's some sudden economic change, like we've experienced recently, some companies actually review their rent within 1 year, but I think by law it's supposed to be 2 years.
Okay.
If you don't send that reviewed rent 6 months to the expiry, a tenant has a right, to not actually pay the new rent.
Oh, really?
I mean, in theory, yes.
Okay, so if I do not get a reminder from my landlord or property manager
6 months before expiry about that they want to increase rent, I can fight it and say, well, I didn't get enough time.
Okay, the increment of rent, not
the increment of rent. The reminder to pay also the same thing. In both cases, you potentially lose money as a property manager. One is a tenant can use that excuse to say, now give me official 6-month notice that I want to leave from whatever day you now finally reach out.
Ooh.
So they can, for example, leave your apartment in 3 months extra.
Ooh.
People have done that, man. That happens a lot.
It's a loss.
Yes.
Huge loss.
The other loss is if you've already agreed with the landlord to review the rent and you forget to do that, right? So for potentially you want to increase rent from 2 million to 5 million, you automatically lose 500k, except the tenant is reasonable, which in these climes might not happen. You just lose 500k for a year, and you only have 1 more year to now renew again.
But you mentioned 6 months, which is like the regular for those that, receive annual rent.
Yes.
So how about regions where it is monthly? So is this mistake because of the duration?
So this is this particular rules for every kind of tenancy. If it's a 6-month tenancy, there's a right time to send that. If it's a 1-month tenancy, there's each of those tenancy options have dates when you just send those reminders.
Okay.
And as I said, because you're a property manager managing hundreds of properties, it's very easy that even if you agree 10% of the time you forget. Sometimes 10% of the time you forget. And so CEOs usually would complain about their property managers missing out on this a lot, and means that they are losing revenue.
Okay.
It's two-way. The landlord loses revenue, for example, if you're supposed to increase rent. But you also lose revenue because if the landlord's rent goes up, your commissions go up as a company.
True.
So both of you are losing money. And I started with this because it's related to money. It's a major mistake that is made. And I don't think that it's just because people want to make the mistake. I think it's because there are no tools to help them ensure that they don't forget to do these things. And one of it, I always share this with good tenants, is how there's a tool that automatically alerts you 2 weeks before the deadline for that task to say, hey, you need to send a mail right now.
Okay.
So the tool, the way we've built it, you can set it and say every 2 weeks before a deadline, inform me. You can decide to make it 1 week, but it's flexible enough for you to decide when you want to get a reminder for a task, and it's set automatically in the system. So all the properties, for example, your property is expiring December 31st. You will get a reminder on June 15th. That by June 30th, you need to send a reminder. Right? And that it stays on your task bar every morning. You see it until you send it. Right? And your colleagues also see it. So that way, there's incentive for you to close on time and you don't lose money.
Okay.
And of course, once you perform well, you potentially get increased income.
Yeah.
Right? So this system just helps, number one, the property manager to do the right time, right time. Help to ensure that landlord doesn't lose money.
Okay.
But also ensures that the property manager, your work is done the right way, and you can, for example, push for a raise if you need to, or the company can sort of reward you. Second one I would talk about is routine inspections. Again, it's very related to this. Is that when you rent out a property to a tenant, you're supposed to do routine inspections, and the reason for that, the goal of routine inspections is to see how the property is being used. So let's say I rent out an apartment to you today. Depending on the policy, and I've seen companies that do routine inspections quarterly. I've seen the ones that do it twice a year. I've seen the ones that do it at renewal.
Okay.
My suggestion is to do it as frequently as possible, and I'll explain why. But depending on what you set, you want to make sure you don't forget. And the reason for that is you can do a tenant verification process. Of course, a lot of companies today maybe don't even do very strong processing because they maybe say, where do you work? Maybe they don't even check where those people work. But let's say they
mention a very fancy work.
Exactly. Let's say the person passes your verification process, depending on how soft or hard it is. You're still not 100% sure that the person in your apartment well. In fact, you have no proof except is history with other landlords. If you do your first inspection in 3 months, for example, you can see how the person is using it. You can see whether the person has subletted the apartment to multiple tenants, which has happened many times.
Okay, yeah.
You can see if the person is not clean. You can see when you come for inspection, there are 10 people in a 2-bedroom flat. It means that you have 9 more months to give me notice to quit. Right? You have enough time. But if you do the inspection just at the renewal, 2 things will happen. Number one, you have a short period to tell you to go. Number 2, the amount of damage that have gone into the building at that time will cost you and your landlord a lot to fix.
A lot of money. Yeah.
So the earlier you can spot that there's a problem and create a system to mitigate against the losses, the better for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, there's lots of money in this also. Is that if you don't do the inspection on time and there's a bad tenant and is damaging things, he has 9 more months to damage things. And you can shout and complain, they will still get away with it as long as you don't spoil it on time. Why I also suggest that people do it frequently, and I'm not saying you should do it every 3 months, you can decide what works. In fact, I believe that I should do it based on the risk of the tenant.
Oh,
If you do it the first time and you realize that it was keeping good shape, you can wait for 6 more months.
now this inspection we're talking about.
Yes, routine inspections.
Okay.
I think it should be based on, for example, if I have a tenant and every time, if I'm in the first year, I do it every 3 months and I see that every time I go, everything's fine. I can decide that next year I'm going to do that at renewal. I can decide to wait for 6 months or 9 months because I can tell that it's a great tenant.
Okay.
If I come every time he has upgraded something, he has painted, I know it's a good tenant. I don't need to do the inspection every time. But the job is to spot things on time before they become too bad to manage. Because what happens is the cost of renovation becomes too much. There are many times where, people rent out to somebody. As long as the person is paying rent, they don't do anything about it. They don't check. And I've seen landlords that I've worked with spend 3 times the rent to renovate the building because nobody checked what was going on for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Right? Now, of course, in that case, landlord is not going to be happy with the property manager.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to feel like you didn't do your job. And potentially you can lose that business. In fact, I've seen cases where they've lost the business because they've not managed property in the right way. Landlord has gotten away with a lot of damages. Inspections were not done, obviously. And so by the time it was done, it was already too late. Yeah. So that's the second thing I think is inspections are important. Make sure you do them. Think of them as preventive. So you should not react. You should, and again, the good tenant provides a tool to remind you. If you set it and say I want to do inspections 3 times or twice a year, it reminds you before the time, and you can schedule with tenant and ensure you do it at the right time. It saves money. It reduces stress. Beyond saving money, it reduces a lot of stress for you because what happens is when you have a bad tenant like that and you don't sort it out on time, the person that will stay longer in your apartment, not paying you, you will lose money.
Yeah.
And then you lose money going to run after them. It's actually a bad way to marry tenants. Yeah. So that's the second one. The third one I would talk about is, again, I don't think it's totally on the property managers.
Okay.
I think it's somewhere between property managers and landlords.
Okay.
Is quick maintenance. They're very related to routine checks.
Okay.
And it's simple. If something is broken, you fix it on time. You spend less fixing it.
How is that so?
There are 2 ways to think about it. So I'm going to use a different thing to explain it, not necessarily building. There's a pothole on the road.
Yeah.
In normal countries, once a pothole is spotted, it's fixed.
Yeah.
What happens is if I need 5,000 naira to fix a 2 square meter pothole, I'm going to need 10,000 naira to fix a 4 square meter pothole. Between the next 2 months or 3 months, that 2 square meter can become 4 square meter. And I'm going to spend more. But there's one. That's without considering inflation. But if you're in Nigeria or in Kenya and in last year, let's say last year in December, you're supposed to fix something worth 2,000 naira. And that is now a bigger problem that is not 4,000 naira. You're most likely to spend about 6,000 to 7,000 naira fixing now if you consider inflation. So there are 2 ways. Number 1 is a bigger problem. Number 2, inflation now doubles again. So you are probably spending 3 or 4 times what you could have spent 2 or 3 months ago to fix the problem. Right? What happens if you don't fix it on time is a problem. Now there are times when you ignore it. You don't inform the landlord. When that becomes a big problem, you inform the landlord. That's on the property manager. The earlier you fix it, better. But there are also times when you've already informed the landlord saying, no, I don't want to fix it. Oh, no. When landlord doesn't realize that it's going to spend more in the end. And property manager's job is to show them the numbers and say, fix it today. Because if you don't fix it today, in 6 months' time, you're going to spend 3 or 4 times that amount to fix it. Landlords usually don't see this. But if you're able to explain numbers to them, I think it helps to make that decision. And sometimes it's even cheaper to get a loan to fix it. Right? And that's something that property management companies can do if you're working with good tenants. You can get a loan for your landlords to fix something on time at very low interest so that it doesn't become a problem. And I use the example of a road, but it could just be a plumbing issue. Something is leaking, the wall is getting soaked. And this is something I've seen in real life. Wall is getting soaked. You're not doing about it. Until part of the building starts falling apart, they're showering around. You could have fixed it months ago.
Yes.
Now, the cost of fixing is higher. There's now more things you're fixing because you didn't fix something on time. Yeah, so that's the third one. I think the fourth one, and maybe final one for this episode, maybe we'll go back to more episodes, is just communication. It's something that when I was acting as a property manager, something that I also had to learn is that you have to constantly communicate. And it's something that I also had to grow in.
Okay.
You have to constantly communicate with your tenants. They want to feel like they're human beings. Because we're in an imperfect system where, for example, as a facility manager, you're struggling with diesel, gen is down, today, tomorrow. You want to constantly communicate when things are going well, when things are going bad. Because they will need to give you, so sometimes when you need some empathy from them, you're trying to fix things not working, they will need to understand that, oh, this person is actually a good person, so we understand there's a problem. But if when things are good, you don't communicate,
I was coming to that.
There's nothing for them to hold on to say. They just, and this can be very tough. Tenants can demand a lot when things go wrong. I think that the only leverage you have is if you spend time in physical and online communication. Stop by and say, hey, are things going on well? I just want to say hello to you. Send them a birthday message. If you can go to their weddings or celebrations, try to do that.
Okay.
You're basically building social capital with them. It's tough to do this, I'll say. It's very tough because you have hundreds of tenants.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't do some of this when I was doing it. But if you can do that, what happens is when there's a problem, you have a relationship with them. Not just as first man, but maybe as a friend or someone that's always been there when they're doing stuff. And you can manage. You can use that. That can help you manage the situation a lot better, and they can be more understanding.
Well, I agree this is a mistake, and I mean, sorry to cut you. I'm just thinking, if I get birthday messages from my bank, that doesn't mean that I'm glad with all of their services.
Yes, it doesn't mean. I mean, and maybe a birthday message from. I don't advise you use a bank system and a bank.
Example.
It's not personalized. The bank message is not personalized.
Personalized relationship.
I would say that you try to build a relationship with them.
Okay.
And not just birthdays. There are many examples I give. Just saying happy birthday today, an automated message. Maybe it's not it's something I've always thought about. Like, why the banks do this? And then when I do, banks not charge for the SMS.
Yeah, they do. So I don't
advise that. I think that you have to find better ways to celebrate your tenants if you can.
Okay.
Again, I won't say this is a mistake. I'll say this is something that can be done to improve the quality of experience for them, and also to even make your job easier when there are challenges that are tough to manage.
Okay.
So I mean, those are the things I can share today. I'm wondering if there's a bonus that I can share.
Well,
except you have a question for me.
Oh, well, I think I'm going to, from this episode, it would be nice to get more questions, maybe from PMs who get to watch the conversation, and then so that if there are mistakes they make often and they're struggling with dealing with it, we can bring it up in the next episode. And I'm really just going to encourage every PM or facility manager that is watching to include mistakes that they probably observe from their colleagues or from, past organizations they've worked with, so that if there are personal mistakes or company mistakes or mistakes from leaders or mistakes from, tenants or something, we can all share that. But I think it's a good start. So in the next conversation, we'll pick it up from there. But thank you, KJ. It's been a good conversation.
Thank you.